So in this video, I'm just going to do a quick description of how to set up a practice lab using Packet Tracer, which is just a single router, single switch, and then do a basic config on both. So this would be a good thing to use just to practice your basic Cisco commands, and so I'm going to walk you through that. So I'm going to use a 4321 as my router. You could use 4331 at 1941. Really, any of these smaller router numbers down here would work fine. They're going to be similar. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a switch. We'll do a 2960. And then click on the connections here. Do a straight through cable to go from gigabit 000 to, I'm going to go to fast Ethernet 01 on the switch. In the real world, you'd think you'd probably want to do the gigabit connections going to your switch, but if you're a Cisco student in the NetAcad Academy at all, a lot of times they like to use the fast Ethernet. So we'll just go ahead and do that and go to port 1. All right, so router, switch, we'll leave it at that for now. And then I'm going to start on my switch. I like to, we're going to increase the font size first. Good lesson in that. If you ever want to increase the font size in Packet Tracer, it's under Options and Font. All right, now that my font size is a little more readable here. All right, we'll start with our switch. We're going to go ahead and start by just typing enable to go to privileged exec mode, and we'll type a config T. I'm going to start with my host name. We'll just call it S1. Then I'm going to go ahead and configure VLAN 99. We'll set that eventually here to our management VLAN, so I'm going to go ahead and name it. And then from there, we're going to exit and then go to interface. Now, technically, I could have gone straight to interface, but I like to exit out. Interface VLAN 99. And then we'll put an IP address on that. Now, remember, the management VLAN on a switch is only for management. There's no reason to assign an IP address to a switch except for when you want to access it remotely. So really in Packet Tracer, I mean, there's not a lot of reasons to do so, but in the real world, you'd want to put an IP address on a switch. All right, so that's VLAN 99, put an IP address on it. I didn't really need to do that no shutdown, just kind of force a habit. And then what I'm actually going to do for this lab is assign a few ports to that VLAN. So we're going to do F0/, we'll do 2 through 5. And we're going to do switch port mode access for that. Should we spell it right? It's where tab is always your friend. Now a lot of the labs will have you skip the switch port mode access because it's kind of the default. But it's good to put it in there just for reference. You know that your ports are in access mode. And then switch port access, we'll do VLAN 99 to assign those switch ports to that management VLAN. All right, so we've got that set up. The other thing we really should do on our switch is just set up some of the basic options. So we're going to start by going to our line con 0. And we'll do a password of Cisco on that and use the login command to enable login. Then we'll go to our VTY lines, which remember those are for remote access, so telnet, SSH, that sort of thing. And we'll also do a password of Cisco. Log in there. So we got out of config mode. We've done a few of the basic commands, but some other kind of common configuration options that you often would see on a switch. Would be the no IP domain lookup. Again, that just really prevents a mistyped command from being looked up. We already did the host name. We'll do the service password encryption, which just basically encrypts all your passwords as they're in the config. We'll set our enable secret password to class. And we'll do a message of the day, which is another common option that Cisco Labs like to have you do. And it's also just a good practice to do. All right, and that's going to be our basic config on our switch. Let's do a copy run start, and then we'll do a show run just to verify that all that stuff is correct. We've got some ports assigned to our access VLAN. We've got an IP address assigned to it. If you do a show IP interface brief, you can see that all our interfaces are down except for that VLAN 99, which is up. Although you see that the status is up, but the protocol is down. And of course, that's because there's nothing connected to VLAN 99. If you wanted to see that interface, VLAN interface, come all the way up, what you'd need to do is go ahead and add a computer onto your network here and connect it to one of those ports on the switch. You can see now the line protocol changed state to up because a VLAN interface is going to be down unless there's actually a device connected to it. So you look at that again, you can see now it's up and up. All right, so that's our basic switch config. Let's switch over to our router and go ahead and get out of that initial configuration dialog, and we'll do the same thing. We'll go into our config mode. We'll start with a host name. We're just going to call it R1, and then we're just going to do some of the basic stuff as well. So we're going to set a domain name. We'll do no IP domain lookup on here as well. We'll do the service password encryption. Again, same commands on the router as they were on the switch. Let's go ahead and do a security. Security password space actually. We're going to do a min length of 12. Just basically means that your passwords all have to be at least 12 characters. Another common task you have to do a lot is setting up SSH. Now the things required for SSH would have been the domain name, which we already did. Then you also need to set up a username and password for SSH. So I'm going to set up admin with a secret of, we'll call it Cisco admin 123. So Cisco admin all lowercase 123. Not a great password, but it works for our example. Then to use SSH, you also have to set up your crypto. So we're going to do a crypto key generate to create your keys that are going to be used by the RSA keys that are going to be used by SSH. So we'll do RSA, and we're going to do 1024, and it goes ahead and it generates the RSA keys that be used for SSH. Let's set our enable secret. We're going to set this to the same password. I'm just going to do Cisco enable 123 instead of Cisco admin. All right, so then we got kind of our basic config done on the device. Next thing we're going to do is move over to our console line, and we'll do the password Cisco con pass, and then log in, and then we'll do our VTY lines, and we'll do password Cisco VTY pass, log in, local, and we're going to do a transport input SSH. Now the transport input SSH is what disables Telnet and only allows SSH. Then lastly, we're going to go back to global config mode and do a message of the day as well. And I spelled it wrong, so I'm just going to use the up arrow to bring that back and go back and get rid of that extra T I put in banner. All right, then we'll do a copy. Oops. It's a good lesson. If I do copy run start now, it doesn't like it because I'm in config mode. Now, sometimes you can put the word do in front of your command, and it will allow you to do it while you're in config mode. So typical commands that require you to be in global config mode, you can do with that do command. All right, now let's go over to interface. We did G000 when we connected it, and we'll set our IP address to 192.168.1.1 with a /24 subnet mask. Now this is a router, so we're going to do description connection to S1 and a no shutdown. Description, of course, is not required, just there for someone to be able to look at the config and tell what's going on. Didn't do any IPv6 yet, we'll do that in a little bit. So let's end, get out of that, we'll do a copy run start again. Let's do a show IP int brief or show IP interface brief to see what's going on. You can see that our gigabit 000 is up. So that's great. We now have a basic config done on our router. If you wanted to, now we should be able to go to PC, go to desktop, see if we can remember how to SSH from packet tracer. Well, easy way is to go to command prompt. You can do an SSH. So just type it by itself and hit enter. It tells you the usage, which is SSH-L admin. Our target would be 192.168.1.1. Now we're gonna have a little problem here because we never assigned an IP address to our computer. Whoops. So let's go ahead and we'll set a static IP. If we didn't set up DHCP, we'll maybe do that in a future lab. So we can take a look at how to do that and put in our gateway, which is the router IP address. Do not have DNS set up, so that was going to be it. So let's try that again. Remote host not responding. Well, let's go ahead and ping it. Oops. Well, doesn't look like things are working. Let's take a look at what's going on here. We got an IP address, we got a subnet mask, we got a default gateway. I think the problem is that we never set up the port on our switch to be in the correct VLAN. So if you tried something like we're following along, like what we were just doing, you would have noticed that didn't work. So for that to happen, normally you'd want a trunk interface, which we'll talk about in future labs. What is going on? All right. Let's go to interface F01. We'll do switch port access VLAN 99. Now let's go ahead and try that again. Notice that's orange. We'll fast forward in time so we can just do it right away. Let's try that again. So you're immediately prompted for passwords. We know that our config worked. Of course, now I have to remember what I put. I don't remember what I put. Now, you have to remember what you put for our password, which of course was Cisco admin123. And now you can see I am connected to my router. All right, there you have it, basic config with IPv4 anyways, set up from our basic lab setup in packet tracer. I did VLAN 99 on this interface because if this computer's in VLAN 99, then the port going to the router would also have to be in VLAN 99 to allow that communication to happen. Normally, as we'll see in future labs, you'd want to set this up as a trunk to allow multiple VLANs to communicate with your router. So that'll be a future lab. Hope that was a helpful video. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments.